Keanu Reeves gave up his first-class seat for an elderly doctor, displaying a rare moment of humility, generosity, and compassion that many would never expect from a world-famous celebrity. But what happened next will truly leave you speechless. As the doctor prepared for her journey, an unexpected event unfolded that changed everything for both her and Keanu. What is the full story behind this remarkable act of kindness? What surprise awaits them on this seemingly ordinary flight? Join us as we unravel this heartwarming story, because this is one story you won't want to miss. Keanu Reeves' selfless act leaves everyone in amazement. It had been an exhausting week for Dr. Evelyn Grant. At 71, she no longer performed surgeries often, having taken on a more advisory role in her medical practice. Yet, when a life-threatening case comes in, she doesn't hesitate. She had missed her original flight due to the emergency surgery she had that day. By the time she arrived at the airport, her only option was a seat in economy. The airline had been understanding, but no upgrades were available. Exhausted and frustrated, Dr. Grant accepted her fate, dragging her old leather suitcase behind her as she navigated the bustling airport terminal. As she approached the gate, she couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. Her years of service, her weary body, and the endless sacrifices she had made for others. She had seen the fragility of life up close, day after day, year after year. Yet now, as she struggled to keep pace with the world around her, she felt vulnerable. The vitality she once had was now a distant memory. But little did she know that her fate would change. Keep watching to find out what happens next. Keanu Reeves on the other side sat in the corner of the same terminal, wearing a simple outfit, a black hoodie, jeans, and a face mask. He had become adept at blending in with the crowd, though it was increasingly difficult with his global fame. Still, the mask helped, as his preference for keeping to himself. He enjoyed his solitude, finding peace in the quiet moments between the chaos of his public life. Today was supposed to be a normal travel day. He had booked a first-class ticket, hoping for some comfort on the long flight ahead. As the boarding announcement rang through the terminal, Keanu stood and casually glanced around, taking in the usual airport scene: rushed travelers, business people tapping away on their phones, families trying to keep their children in line. But then, his eyes landed on Dr. Grant. She was clearly exhausted, her shoulders slumped as she struggled with her belongings. Her suitcase looked worn, like it had traveled the world many times over, just as she probably had. But what caught his attention was the deep weariness in her face, the kind that told a story of years of hard work, of giving too much and never asking for anything in return. Keanu's eyes softened behind his mask. There was something about her, something familiar in the quiet way she moved through the world. He knew that look all too well. It was the look of someone who had been through more than anyone else knew, someone who had carried burdens for others without complaint. He watched as she tried to adjust her bag, her hands trembling slightly from fatigue. The announcement for first-class boarding was just beginning, and Keanu could feel the eyes on him. People slowly recognize him, even with the mask. They were always watching, always whispering, but he had learned to tune it out. Dr. Grant's quiet struggle pulled at him. Without thinking twice, he walked over to her, gently tapping her on the shoulder. He requested to help her with her belongings. Dr. Grant, startled at first, turned and looked up at him. For a moment, she couldn't quite place him. The mask obscured most of his face, but there was something familiar in his eyes. She hesitated, but then nodded, too tired to refuse the help. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice carrying the weight of her exhaustion. Keanu smiled beneath the mask, lifting her suitcase with ease. He stood beside her, waiting as the line moved forward. When they reached the ticket agent, Keanu made a quick decision. He asked her to take his seat in first class, noticing that she needed it more than him. Dr. Grant was taken aback. No one had ever offered her something so selfless before, especially not a first-class seat. It was too much. She refused, but Keanu insisted, saying that he will be fine in the economy. Dr. Grant hesitated for a while. She had spent her entire life serving others, rarely accepting help herself. But looking into Keanu's eyes that showed kindness and sincerity, she felt a warmth spread through her. For the first time in a long while, someone was offering her kindness without asking for anything back. Her body ached with gratitude more than fatigue, and she found herself nodding. She thanked him, and Keanu simply smiled, gesturing her toward the first-class cabin. As Dr. Grant made her way to the luxurious comfort of the first-class section, Keanu handed his own economy ticket to the gate agent and quietly took his place among the other passengers in the coach. He didn't mind. The small gesture had lifted something inside him, something that reminded him of the importance of these moments, moments when people could show kindness to one another, no matter who they were. Once aboard the plane, Keanu settled into his cramped economy seat, adjusting his mask and leaning back as the flight attendants moved through the aisle. He was seated next to a young boy, maybe 14 or 15 years old, who was quietly crying. The boy tried to be discreet about it, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand and sniffling softly. Keanu noticed immediately. Leaning toward the boy, Keanu spoke in a gentle tone, careful not to startle him. "Hey, are you okay?" The boy hesitated, looking up at the stranger beside him. His small face was streaked with tears, his eyes red and puffy. Keanu's voice was soft and comforting, and something about the way he spoke made the boy feel safe enough to answer. The boy explained that his dad left him and his mom, and the mom was sending him to his grandma because she can't take care of him at the moment. But he didn't want to go. He wanted to stay with her and help her. Keanu felt a pang of empathy wash over him. He knew what it was like to feel abandoned by a father. Though his own story was different, the pain of being left behind was something that had shaped him in ways he still grappled with. He understood the boy's sadness, the sense of helplessness that came from being separated from the people you love most. But do you know the unbelievable part in all these? Keanu softly comforted him, calmly telling him that his mother loved him and just needed some time to get back on her feet, that after that she would come for him. The boy looked at him, his tears slowly drying up. There was a flicker of hope in his eyes now, a small spark of determination. A moment of kindness that changed everything profoundly. Meanwhile, in first class, Dr. Evelyn Grant settled into her seat, feeling the plush cushions envelop her. It felt surreal, almost luxurious, and she was grateful for the unexpected upgrade. As she glanced around the cabin, she couldn't shake the feeling of guilt for taking Keanu's seat. Why would someone so famous give up their comfort for someone like her? After a while, the flight attendants served drinks and snacks. Dr. Grant sipped her herbal tea, savoring the warmth. Her mind drifted back to her patients, the children, the elderly, all the lives she had touched over the years. The surgical lights, the quiet whispers in the operating room, the small victories and heartbreaking losses of her career. Dr. Evelyn Grant had seen so much, felt so much. Yet in this moment, she was at peace. But suddenly, chaos broke the calm. A woman a few rows ahead screamed, holding her daughter in panic. The little girl was lying in the aisle, her body shaking uncontrollably. Dr. Grant moved without thinking. Her instincts took over as she rushed to the child's side. The girl was having a seizure, her small body jerking with violent tremors. Her terrified mother stood nearby, sobbing in fear, unsure of what to do. Dr. Grant quickly felt her pulse. It was weak and fast. The girl's breathing was irregular, her condition worsening. Gently, Evelyn adjusted her, making sure her airway was open and her head was lowered to keep her safe. Others watched nervously, uncertain how to help. Then Keanu stepped forward. His presence was calm, his eyes focused. Without a word, he assisted Dr. Grant, following her silent cues. Together, they worked to steady the girl as her seizure continued. The flight attendants hovered nearby, ready to assist but clearly unsure of what to do. Slowly, the girl's shaking began to fade. Her small body relaxed, her breathing became steady again. Dr. Grant checked her once more, making sure she was stable. She looked up at the mother, offering a reassuring nod. The mother, still shaking, reached out to touch her daughter, her fear slowly giving way to relief. Keanu gently cradled the girl, who was now awake but weak. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked up at him, exhausted but curious. Her breathing had returned to normal, and the worst had passed. As the cabin became quiet, the mother clung to her daughter, tears of relief streaming down her face. Dr. Grant stood, her job done, as the flight attendants brought blankets and water. The tension in the air softened. The crisis was over. The mother thanked both of them, and they were grateful to help. Keanu and Dr. Grant quietly returned to their seats, the commotion settling as the flight attendants assured the passengers that everything was under control. And for the rest of the flight, Keanu sat quietly in his seat, staring out of the window as the clouds passed by. He didn't want recognition for what he had done. He never did. These were just moments, small acts of kindness that anyone could do. It wasn't about being a hero or even being Keanu Reeves. It was about being human, about offering help when someone needed it most. But despite the fact that this incident where Keanu Reeves gave up his first-class seat for an elderly doctor and helped a little girl did not catch the public's eye, it's just one of the countless gestures that showcase his humble and generous spirit. Some moments of kindness go unnoticed, but in Reeves' case, there are many more stories that people did notice. Stories that show us just how down-to-earth he really is. For Keanu, it seems generosity is second nature. This quality of his is what makes him stand out in Hollywood, not just as an actor, but as a genuinely kind person. Think about it. A major Hollywood star, known all over the world, sitting quietly on public transport, like any ordinary person. It's already hard to imagine. But the fact that Keanu Reeves doesn't just take the subway, but also goes out of his way to be considerate, is what makes him even more special. One time, Keanu Reeves was on the subway, sitting quietly and minding his own business. As the train continued on its journey, he noticed a woman standing nearby, struggling to find a seat. Without hesitation, he stood up and offered her his seat. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes about who he is, someone who pays attention to others and acts with kindness, even when no one is expecting it. In a world where people are often too busy or caught up in their own lives, Keanu's quiet act of generosity made a big impact. Also, we all know how tough it can be to handle life's pressures. Most people wouldn't expect a celebrity like Keanu to be so grounded, but that's where he's different. His kindness extends to every corner of his life, even on the movie sets where he worked, when filming the Matrix sequels. Keanu made a lot of money from those films, millions in fact. But instead of keeping all of it, he gave away a huge chunk. He gave $75 million to the behind-the-scenes crew. These are the people who work tirelessly to create the special effects and make the movie magic happen, but often go unnoticed. Keanu thought they deserved more recognition for their work, so he made sure they got it. In a world where money can change people, Keanu didn't let it change him. But that is not all. When he was at the height of his fame, Keanu was asked to star in The Devil's Advocate alongside Al Pacino. The studio couldn't afford to pay both Keanu and Pacino their full salaries, so Keanu made a huge sacrifice. He took a $2 million pay cut just so they could hire Pacino. Think about that for a second. Keanu was already a big name, but instead of insisting on getting paid more, he chose to give up part of his earnings so that someone he admired could be part of the project. It wasn't about the money for Keanu. It was about making a great film and working with talented people. And that wasn't a one-time thing. He did the same when he starred in The Replacements. Keanu took a massive pay cut of 90% so that the filmmakers could hire Gene Hackman. Once again, Keanu's decision wasn't driven by greed or fame. It was motivated by his love for the craft and his desire to work alongside people he respected. How many people in his position would have done the same? It's a rare thing, especially in an industry known for big egos and even bigger paychecks. And this is why Keanu Reeves is so admired, both inside and outside of Hollywood. He's proof that you can be incredibly successful and still remain humble and kind. Whether it's giving up his seat on the subway, taking pay cuts to help out fellow actors and crew members, or simply being kind to those around him, Keanu always finds a way to make a positive impact. Even though the story of him giving up his first-class seat for an elderly doctor didn't make headlines, it's just another example of the type of person he is. Someone who quietly does good, without needing or wanting the spotlight. Which part of this story touched you the most? Drop it in the comment section below. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.